Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today we're going to be going over some curses, because we just finished up with the Summoning Tree and the Poison and Bone Tree, which means we're on our way to completing the Necromancer. We're going to start off with one of the curses that we haven't done. We already finished Amplify Damage, and we already did Attract, Decrepify, and Life Tap, so if you want to check out those videos, they're already up. Dim Vision is a very interesting curse. It's also a very powerful curse that gets overlooked a lot. And I don't really know why, because quite honestly, it's just really good in general. And I could demonstrate this extremely easily by just going to Frigid Highlands and just showing you the difference between blinding a bunch of monsters and not. Now, there are some interesting things that you need to know about the Hits Blind, or rather the Dim Vision curse. Number one is that even though they are technically blind, they are not blind. Okay, really how the game does this is it basically sets their light radius to 0, which means their light radius is directly underneath of their feet instead of spread out around them. Now, the easiest way to see this is to go to somewhere like Catacombs Level 2, where the monsters have light radiuses around them, and you can kind of see where they are. So, like, for instance, let me see if I could find a monster here. But, of course, I'm clicking on stuff. I see these guys here kind of have their own light radius as they walk around a little bit. When you curse them, what happens is their light radius is then set to exactly and precisely underneath their feet and nothing else. Now, if you walk into their light radius, they'll attack you. But if you stay out of their light radius, they won't. And since their light radius is so ridiculously small, it's difficult for you to get into their light radius. You really have to try. Now, when it comes to unique monsters, it doesn't work. And for the most part, anything that is not a minion or a trash mob, it's not going to work on. So as you cast this on targets, you'll notice that it will work on just about everything except for those special monsters. Now, in this way, you can utilize this to isolate those special monsters. So you can obviously use it to trap them. So if you, like, say for instance, you were out here in Frigid Highlands and you were trying to fight, I don't know, just Eldritch. Like maybe for some reason you wanted to just fight Eldritch and nothing else. Well, if you blind his entire group, the only monster that's going to come chase you is Eldritch. That's it. And now you have him separated from the rest of the group, which is pretty cool. Another very interesting thing about this is that the monsters are then restricted to only using the abilities specifically that can be used within melee range. And this means that monsters like Gloams and various targets tend to be almost completely neutered by the fact that they are blinded. So when you blind Gloams, they literally can't do anything but melee attack you. And if nothing impresses you about this skill, that is the one thing that should impress you, is that being able to blind Gloams completely makes them harmless. And Gloams are honestly one of the most deadly monsters in the early game before you can get your resistances set up. They will absolutely annihilate you at every turn. Now, when you blind the monsters, they will still continue the last action that they were about to complete before you blinded them. So, for instance, see how these monsters are on their way to hit me? Well, I can blind them, but they're still going to come and try to hit me during that. That was their last action. Like, they're still going in the direction of when they last moved before they end up going, okay, well, I'm blind, I can't do anything. And if it looks like the blind isn't working for some reason, that's probably all that's happening. And all you really need to do is just, like, let them take one swing at you, and then they will not take a subsequent swing because they're done with whatever their last action is. There are also some monsters in the game that do not have melee attacks. And when you blind them with this particular skill, they become completely useless. they have absolutely nothing that they can do because they don't have a melee attack that they can spend. A lot of these monsters are things like these skeleton archers that don't have melee weapons. So when you go up and you blind the skeleton archers, they can't actually fight you anymore. Spear cats also don't have melee attacks, as far as I remember. And there's quite a few monsters in the game that are like this. They actually don't have an alternate attack that they can use. Now, there are a lot of items in the game that will give you a hits blinds target effect. You can utilize things that have the hits blinds target. And hits blinds target is actually just casting dim vision. And based on the level of the hits blinds target is equivalent to the level of the dim vision. However, hits blinds target does not have a radius. It is just on that one monster and nothing else. Whereas when you cast the curse, there is a huge radius difference between lower level versions and higher level versions. As you can see, right now I'm at level 21 with a radius of 16 yards. And if I dump a bunch of points into it, I'll be at a radius of 28.6 yards. The duration of this is also different depending on the difficulty that you're in. This is also important because all AI controlling effects like this, anything that modifies the way that AI works on a monster, is subject to penalties. So if I take this Necromancer, and I bring him to normal difficulty, you'll see that the duration is now 85 seconds. It's absolutely insane. And then when I take him to nightmare difficulty, the duration decreases from 85 seconds to 42.4 seconds. And then again, when I go to hell difficulty, it decreases one more time to the really low price. I'm just kidding. The really low duration of 26 or something like that? At 21.2 seconds. Now, 21.2 seconds is still a pretty long time. If you go out here and you blind some monsters with 21.2 second duration, it's going to be pretty ridiculous. They're going to be kind of just sitting there for a pretty long period of time. But to get that effect, you really have to beef up the ability. And as you can see, once it's at a high level, like it literally hits the entire screen. With a radius of 28.6 yards, like you literally are hitting like almost everything on the screen. And even a little bit past the edge of the screen at that point. And since you can control exactly where your curse is, you can technically hit probably the largest area out of any ability in the game. Because you have to think about the fact that normally, when you curse a monster, the monster is going to specifically be like hit within that radius around you in a circle, right? So like if you were to use an aura as an example, the aura is going to spread outward from you at the center, right? But because you can curse at any place that you want to, I can hit the largest area possible by cursing once in the center, once at the edge of the screen, in each corner. And by doing this, I can literally hit every single monster for a massive range around me in every single direction. To the point where literally monsters off the screen by freaking ridiculous proportions are getting cursed. Like, I could just go ahead in here and just curse in every corner, and then you'll see there's literally monsters off the screen way far away from me that are being cursed because of the massive potential with this. And as you can see, like, when they're cursed, what am I doing? I'm just, like, walking through everything. Like, you can use this to literally just move your way to an objective point. One of the classic examples of where you can utilize this to the best effect is Anya's Frozen River quest. When you're running around in the Anya Frozen River quest, you can, of course, utilize this ability to blind all the gloams, and in the process, make the entire quest super easy. As long as they're blind, they're not shooting lightning, and as long as they're not shooting lightning, you're fine. Now, there are a couple items in the game that are rather interesting that do actually have the curse effect on them. And they're relatively low level, but they can actually be exceptionally good in terms of how they keep you alive. As you guys have seen, when you blind a monster, they stop what they're doing, right? So, at that particular point, the monsters stop what they're doing. And even if it doesn't last particularly long, they're not doing anything while they're blinded. Well, the Darksight Helm Bassinet and the Gloom Runeword both have level 3 blind on it, or rather dim vision, with a pretty decent chance of 6% with the Darksight Bassinet and 15% chance with the Gloom Body Armor. Now, what happens is when a ranged monster hits you with one of these items on, they get automatically cursed if it procs. And because of the fact that it stops them in their tracks of what they're doing, it causes breakups in the amount of damage that these monsters output, because while they're blinded, they're doing nothing. Now, granted, it doesn't last anywhere near as long as mine. So if I wanted to give you like an accurate example of how long level 3 lasts, we can go ahead and reset this character. And let me go ahead and just grab just enough so that we can get this to the right level. Level 17. So we're at level 1. So this is level 3, which is about 2.7 seconds. And, of course, I can't actually wear anything. Summoning, portion and bone. Curses. Curses! There we go. Alright, so in that same situation in Frigid Highlands, it would look something like this. And as you can see, it stops them in their tracks. And when it casts this spell on them, it's going to hit everything within that radius, too. It's not just going to hit the monster. It's going to hit that monster and everything that's nearby. And in this way, the Gloom Body Armor and the Darksight Bassinet can be interesting choices defensively to give yourself an advantage against like these ranged monsters as they're hitting you. In fact, a lot of the times on my characters, one of the monsters that usually kills me the most is the frickin' spear cats. I don't know why, but the spear cats always tend to get me, or the fire archers. The fire archers and the spear cats are just nasty, especially when they group up on you and you end up with so many of them. So like having the ability to just like automatically blind them. And the same thing works for the gloams, by the way. When the gloams are shooting lightning at you and the lightning hits you, the lightning will proc the blind effect and stop the gloams from firing more bolts during that duration of the blind. And this can be exceptionally good in lower difficulties because, as you can see, it's only 2.7 seconds in hell difficulty. But when we go to normal difficulty, that same level 3 blind is actually pretty good. As you can see now, it's a 11-second duration. And so having an 11-second blind that's going off on any target that tries to attack you can be absolutely amazing in terms of like how it keeps you alive. I mean, 11 seconds is a pretty long time, as you can see. Like, these monsters are pretty much useless for a pretty prolonged duration during that particular time period. And imagine that this is going off all the time as monsters are striking you. So anytime a monster is hitting you, there's a chance that the blind is going off, and it, can be useful in that way. I've actually kind of like always poo-pooed on the Gloom Runeword, not going to lie. But looking at it specifically from the perspective of that level, at 15% chance of level 3 dim vision being cast on any monster that attacks you, it actually does have surprisingly good defensive bonuses. Now, keep in mind, though, that if you're a melee character, as we talked about earlier, if you're in melee range of a monster, it's not going to have the best effect for you because blinded monsters that are within melee range are still hitting you. However, if you're in situations where you have large amounts of ranged monsters that are attacking you, or you're worried about gloams or any other kind of monster that, you know, is attacking you from range, or you're a character who generally is at range for the most part, the blind effect is going to have a much stronger effect for you, especially in Nightmare difficulty, where I feel like it probably has the best use. In Hell difficulty, of course, that's shorter duration is going to be a little bit of a detriment, but it will still help out a little bit. I think that's pretty much everything for blind, or rather dim vision. And as always, I'd appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about something as simple as the dim vision curse. And as always, keep watching.